If I told you that a group of 12 people sitting around a giant, ridiculously polished mahogany table in Washington, D.C., deciding to change a single, unbelievably boring percentage point by a fraction of a percent is the exact reason your favorite local restaurant just closed its doors forever, you would probably call me crazy. If I told you that this exact same boring meeting is the reason your neighbor's car payment is suddenly over $700 a month, and why you feel mysteriously poorer this year despite finally getting that raise at work, you might think I have been reading way too many financial conspiracy theories on the internet. But I haven't. This isn't a theory. It is just math. It is the cold, hard, unavoidable math of the modern world. Most of us walk around wondering why everything feels so incredibly tight. You are making more money than you did 5 years ago. You're trying to be responsible. You skip the expensive vacations. You do the meal prep. But the math just isn't mathing. The numbers in your checking account do not go as far as they used to, and it feels like there is a leak in the boat that you just cannot find. You are not doing anything wrong. You are just fighting against a microscopic shift in the financial atmosphere. And once you see how this invisible machine actually works, you will never look at the economy, your credit card bill, or your Friday night takeout the exact same way again. So how exactly does a tiny decimal point number in Washington slowly wreck your everyday life? Let's start with what most people believe about interest rates. When the Federal Reserve announces they are raising rates, most of us just shrug. We see the headline flash across our phones, we hear some guy in a tailored suit on a cable news channel talking about basis points and yield curves and macroeconomic tightening. Our eyes completely glaze over, and we just keep scrolling. And honestly, that makes total sense. You are not a Wall Street investment banker. You aren't managing a hedge fund. You aren't trying to buy a multi-million-dollar mansion this afternoon. Maybe you already have a fixed-rate mortgage you locked in years ago. Or maybe you rent, so you figure your housing costs are relatively set. You look at the news and you think, let the bankers panic. Let the real estate bros cry on social media. This is a rich person problem. This does not affect me. It is completely reasonable to feel that way. It is designed to feel that way. The financial industry uses incredibly dense, boring jargon specifically so normal people will tune it out. But here is the truth. The reality they hide behind all that boring terminology. That number they are changing, it does not just affect mortgages. It does not just affect stock prices. It is the invisible gravity that pulls on every single dollar in the entire economy. It is the literal cost of money itself. And when the cost of money goes up, gravity gets heavier. Everything gets harder to lift. Everything gets harder to carry. Not just for massive banks, not just for massive corporations, for you, for your town, for your daily routine. Let me explain this with a pizza shop. Because if you understand the pizza shop, you understand the entire global economy. Imagine you run a neighborhood pizza joint. It's a great little spot. You make a mean pepperoni, your garlic knots are legendary, and the neighborhood loves you. Things are going incredibly well, and you want to buy a massive new commercial pizza oven so you can keep up with the Friday night rush. You do not have $10,000 in cold hard cash sitting in a safe in the back room. Normal businesses don't operate like that. So you go to the local bank and you take out a small business loan. When interest rates are low, when money is what we call cheap, that loan is practically free. It costs you maybe $50 a month in interest. That is nothing. You sell 100 pizzas a week, you pay the $50, you still make a fantastic profit. You even hire a local kid as a delivery driver because you have cash to spare. Life is good. The system is working. But then the people in Washington decide that gravity needs to get heavier. Interest rates go up. Now, you already bought your oven. You aren't taking out a new loan today, so you wipe your brow and you think you are totally safe. But remember, you do not exist in a vacuum. You are part of a massive, interconnected web of money. Think about the guy who supplies your mozzarella cheese. He didn't just buy his fleet of refrigerated delivery trucks with cash. He bought them using corporate debt. When interest rates go up, his loans suddenly get way more expensive to pay off. His monthly payments skyrocket. So what does he do? He does the only thing he can do. He raises the price of your cheese. Now think about the landlord who owns the building your pizza shop is located in. She doesn't own it free and clear. She has a commercial mortgage. And unlike a standard home loan, commercial mortgages often have floating rates, or they have to be refinanced every few years. Her rate adjusts to the new reality. Her monthly payment shoots up by thousands of dollars. So what does she do? When your lease is up, she raises your rent. What about the massive company that manufactures your cardboard pizza boxes? They borrowed tens of millions of dollars to build a new factory last year. Their debt just got incredibly expensive. So your boxes now cost 20 cents more per box. It is a chain reaction. Suddenly, your pepperoni pizza costs 30% more to make. Not because the ingredients are inherently better, not because the tomatoes are suddenly organic, not because you are greedy and want to buy a yacht, but because every single business in your supply chain is passing their new, heavier debt costs down the line, directly to you. So you are forced to raise the price of your pizza from $15 to $20. You have absolutely no choice. You do it, or you go bankrupt and lock the doors forever. But here is the final, brutal twist of the knife. At the exact same time your pizza gets more expensive, your customers are getting completely squeezed from their own side. Their own personal debt is getting more expensive. They are looking at their own credit card bills. They are looking at their own car loans. They are feeling the exact same heavy gravity that you are. So Bob, your best customer who used to buy 2 large pies and a dozen wings every single Friday night, he stops coming every week. He cuts back to once a month. And when he does come, he just gets 1 pie and skips the wings. Now you have sky-high ingredient costs, sky-high rent, and rapidly disappearing customers. That is the trap. That is the invisible machine. That is how the poison drips into the water supply. It starts at the very top, in a boardroom in Washington, and it slowly trickles down through the trucks, the boxes, the rent, and the cheese, until it completely suffocates the neighborhood pizza shop. Now, this is not just a fun, hypothetical thought experiment. This is not textbook theory. This is exactly what is happening right now, all around you, in the real world. Let's look at corporate America. According to data tracked by S&P Global Market Intelligence, over 700 large U.S. companies filed for bankruptcy in 2025. That is a 14% jump from 2024, and it is the highest number of major corporate bankruptcies we have seen since 2010. When famous, household name companies go under, the media always looks for a catchy story. Take Red Lobster. When they collapsed and closed dozens of restaurants, what did the headlines say? The executives went on television and blamed their endless shrimp promotion. They literally tried to convince the public that regular people eating too much $20 shrimp brought down a massive national restaurant chain. It makes for a funny meme, but it is completely ridiculous. If you actually look under the hood, reports from financial researchers show the truth. Was the massive debt left over from private equity leveraged buyouts? That is just a fancy way of saying an investment firm bought the company using a mountain of borrowed money and then forced the restaurant to pay back the loan. When interest rates were practically zero, Red Lobster could easily make the monthly payments on that mountain of debt. But when interest rates spiked, the gravity crushed them. The cost of carrying that debt became financially impossible. The endless shrimp did not bankrupt Red Lobster. The higher interest rates on their massive debt load did. You see the exact same story with airlines, healthcare facilities, and dozens of other massive retailers. The corporate narrative blames changing consumer tastes, or post-pandemic travel habits, or even shoplifting. But the math shows that these companies were sitting on huge piles of debt that suddenly became too expensive to service. And if it is crushing multi-billion-dollar corporations, you better believe it is crushing regular people. Not a little, a lot, every single year. Look at what is happening to the average American's credit cards. Based on federal banking data from 2025, the average interest rate on a general credit card hit an absolutely staggering 24.6%. 24.6%. And if you are using a private label store card, you know, the ones they pressure you to sign up for at the cash register to save 10% on your purchase, the average rate on those is over 31%. 31% interest is not a financial product, it is a financial trap. It is a treadmill that you can never, ever run fast enough to get off. And financial industry data shows Americans are currently carrying over $1.2 trillion in credit card debt, with the average cardholder sitting on over $5,500 in revolving balances. And auto loans? Do not even get me started on auto loans. During the last few years, the price of cars skyrocketed. To afford them, people had to borrow more money. Then the rates went up. So now, the principal is huge and the interest rate is huge. By early 2025, Experian reported that the average monthly auto loan payment hit $675 for a standard car, not a luxury sports car, a standard vehicle just to get you to work. When you zoom out and add it all up, the mortgages, the auto loans, the credit cards, the student loans, Experian's data shows the average American consumer is now sending $1,237 every single month to creditors. Just think about that number. Over $1,200 gone, poof, vanished from your checking account before you even buy a single bag of groceries or pay for a single drop of electricity. That is money that is not going into the local economy. It is not going into your savings account. It is not going to the neighborhood pizza shop. It is going straight to the banks just to pay the premium for existing in a high-interest rate world. It is a giant, unstoppable vacuum cleaner sucking the spending power right out of the middle class. But here is where it gets complicated. It is really easy to listen to all of this, point your finger at the Federal Reserve, and call them the villains of this story. It is incredibly tempting to yell at the screen and say, just lower the rates, make things cheap again, stop ruining everybody's lives. But we have to be brutally honest here. Raising interest rates is not an act of evil. It is an act of desperation. It is harsh, unforgiving medicine. Why do they raise rates in the first place? To fight inflation. Imagine if the people in that mahogany boardroom didn't raise rates. Imagine if they kept money dirt cheap forever. What happens? People just keep borrowing. Businesses keep taking out massive loans. Everyone keeps spending endlessly because money feels free. Demand for goods skyrockets. But there is a limited supply of actual stuff in the world. So prices for everything, your groceries, your gas, your rent, would explode even faster than they already have. We aren't talking about a $20 pizza anymore. We are talking about a $50 pizza. Eventually, if left unchecked, the money in your pocket would become basically worthless. High interest rates are like chemotherapy for an overheating economy. The goal is to kill the inflation cells before they destroy the whole body. You have to cool the system down. You have to make people stop spending. You absolutely got to make borrowing hurt. But the side effects? The side effects make the patient feel absolutely terrible in the process. Jobs are lost, good businesses close, credit card bills spiral out of control for families who are just trying to survive. It is a brutal, painful, ugly cure. Now, this does not mean you should panic, sell all your possessions, and hide your cash under a mattress. It just means you have to understand the game you are actually playing. You cannot blindly borrow money the way people did 5 years ago and expect to get away with it. The old rules are dead. The atmosphere has changed. So the next time you see a headline flash across your screen about interest rates changing by a tiny fraction of a percent, do not just roll your eyes and keep scrolling. Do not brush it off as boring banker jargon that does not matter to your real life. Because interest rates are not just an arbitrary penalty on your bank account. They aren't just a random number on a financial spreadsheet. They are the price of money itself. And when the price of money goes up, eventually nobody escapes the bill.